Time for another challenge. Welcome to Street Scores. It's your boy Rico bringing y'all a Redskins report centered around me challenging myself to guess the 53-man roster before training camp. I'm also going to give position group grades, and I also want to dive into the biggest battles and get y'all opinion on the biggest battles in a Twitter poll near the end of the video. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Let's get it. Now, before we get all the way into this Redskins report, I wanted to show y'all the results of the Twitter poll I ran for how should the Redskins handle the Trent Williams situation, and 37% of the 46 votes that I received agreed with me and said that the Redskins should just give him what he wants. The main reason I feel this way is because the salary cap is estimated to spike in a couple of years, so what we give him won't be a lot percentage-wise in a couple of years. I understand why the rest of everybody else doesn't want to, especially with him pulling a Julio and asking for more money before his contract is even close to the end. And when he signed his contract, he was a top paid offensive tackle in the league. Because then what will stop him from doing this again in a couple of years when the market changes again? But I just want to protect our greatest asset at all costs, Dwayne Haskins. Throwing him out there with Eric Flowers protecting his blind spot is death to the franchise, I'm telling you. But I appreciate everybody who submitted answers. I got more than just myself. I have another one for y'all to answer at the end of the video too, like I just spoke about earlier. Stay tuned for that one. And now, as a disclaimer, the starters will not necessarily add up to 11 players for all you geniuses out there. I'm referring to the starters as the people who will be featured the most and receive the most snaps any given game. For example, my starters include 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 tight ends, 3 wide receivers, and 5 offensive linemen, which adds up to 13, not 11. So don't get in them comments talking about, I can't count. I'm just using starters as a way to grade who will get the majority of the snaps at the position in any given game. So that disclaimer is for all you geniuses out there. Let's start with the quarterback position. It only makes sense. Who will be starting week 1 is a whole nother challenge. That's way harder to predict, especially before training camp. Because if the season were to start today, Keenum would more than likely be starting, like 99% chance. But you never know what might happen over training camp and preseason. Haskins has Keenum beat in every way physically and potential-wise. But Keenum just has more experience as of right now. He can climb the pocket and sense pressure better. But once Haskins learns all of that, it's GG. But as far as the 53-man roster goes, that has to be finalized by 4 p.m. August 31st. Write that down, y'all. Keep tabs on that. The quarterbacks that will make the cut will, of course, be Dwayne Haskins and Case Keenum. But then there will more than likely be a third spot for that boy Colt McCoy, if he can stay healthy. But I wouldn't put my life savings on the fact that there will be a third spot available, but I'm assuming it will. And if there is a third spot, it will go to Colt McCoy. Alex Smith, with his long-term injury, will not count towards the 53-man roster, as he will start the season on the injured reserve list. It's crazy how much has changed in a matter of 12 months if you really think about it. It's really, really wild when you think about it. But the grades as of today, I have the starters, no matter who is starting at quarterback, with a B- grade. Case Keenum is a B-, now and forever. Could be a C+ if he plays like how he did in Denver. Haskins is a B- with the potential to become an A. And as far as bench and depth, with those 3 quarterbacks, I give us a B+. A pretty straight B+ too. We have 2 quarterbacks who could start on other teams, all on this team, Colt McCoy and Case Keenum. And then there's Haskins, who's probably the worst of all 3 today as of July 13th. But of course he is assumed to be the best out of all 3 of them at some point down the line. Hopefully this season. And shoot, hopefully week 1. But no pressure. If he's not ready, don't throw him out there. Please don't, Redskins. Now the offensive line. From center to right tackle, the starting lineup is obvious. Chase Roulier is center, one of our most underrated players. Brandon Sheriff at left guard, who we need to re-sign ASAP. And then Morgan Moses at right tackle, who deserves more credit than he gets because he plays through a lot of injuries that most people miss games for. He gets a lot of penalties because he's hurt. It's not really him. The Redskins just needed him and he had to go out there and play on 2 bad legs. And with 3/5 of the starting offensive line set in stone, the hard part is the left. And to be honest, I definitely feel like Trent will be there starting week 1 at the right tackle position. But that left guard is a toss-up at this point. We'll see who will separate themselves in training camp and preseason. But between Eric Flowers and Wes Martin, I believe Wes Martin will start. He will win the left guard spot and hold on to it years to come. And as far as the rest of the offensive line that will make the 53-man roster, I have Eric Flowers being a backup guard and a break glass in case of emergency tackle. But I really hope he never has to play any tackle on this team. Then there's guard center Tony Bergstrom, swing tackle Jerron Christian, and can play anywhere on the line rookie Ross Pierschbacher. And that pretty much sums it up. I hope Jerron Christian is far better than he was last year, man. Whew. It's crazy how great our healthy starting offensive line is, but how terrible our depth is. Our starters, I graded it an A-. It could be an A+ if Wes Martin is as good as I hope, but I don't want to bank on the fact that he will be a huge upgrade from Sean Laval. I think he'll definitely be some form of an upgrade, but I'm not banking on the fact that he'll be just this huge step forward, especially in his rookie season. Also, health scares me, of course. I don't like to include injuries in the grading system, but with how often they happen to this offensive line, it would be unfair to y'all to get y'all hopes up and grade them as an A+, excluding the potential of injuries. And as far as the bench goes, I gotta give it a scary C. It's really dark for the depth as of today. Unless we start signing some people, bringing in some people for training camp, some of these undrafted free agents start showing out, I don't know. Ross Pierschbacher is the safest player, and Jerron Christian has the most potential, along with the lowest floor. Obviously, we saw that low floor last year. It's just a dark situation if any of the starters get hurt, honestly. Ty Nsekhe alone could have saved this grade, or at least a Ty Nsekhe replacement, like a Desmond Harrison, who the Redskins placed a claim on, but the Cardinals with high priority won the claim, of course. The only reason the depth isn't an F is because players like Bergstrom and Pierschbacher are versatile and serviceable enough at multiple positions, so it's not like panic mode if somebody gets hurt. And the Redskins have shown that they can actually find guys off the street and get them to plug in quite well somehow. I don't know how they did it last year, but we made do. So I have confidence in the Redskins to be able to bring in some depth if we need it. So a good little C right there. I can't go higher than that, though. I can't even edge it to a C+. Nah, fam. Nah. The tight ends. And that's an easy one. Jordan can't play 16 games in the season. Reed, who has honestly missed a step. He's not as explosive as he used to be back in like 2016. But he's still pretty good. And then there's Vernon, I still got it, Davis, who's still out running linebackers at 35 years old. And then we have the backups. The depth, which is also easy. We have Jeremy Sprinkle, who is our best blocking tight end on roster, but isn't that great at it himself. So we're in deep trouble when it comes to blocking from our tight end group. And they're also trying to develop Sprinkle into a dependable pass catching option, but he really needs to get his blocking down pat first. That's what matters the most. And then lastly, we have undrafted free agent Donald Parham. The high ceiling, literally, at 6'8", low floor prospect that has some work to do on his route running and a long ways to go in blocking, which leads me to my grades. The starters get a C+. If Jordan Reed was guaranteed to stay healthy for 16 games, and if him and Vernon Davis could actually block, this could skyrocket them to an A. That's all they need to be one of the best tight end duos in the league easily. But I doubt they will magically become dependable blockers this year, when we've seen really no signs of hope in previous years. Even though Vernon Davis has the occasional snap where he blocks well, at least he gets in the way. He doesn't move people, but at least he gets in the way. Jordan Reed's footwork and everything is messed up. He doesn't even get in the way right to at least just take up their time a little bit. And then there's the bench. An unproven pair, one with a high floor, low ceiling, and the other with the opposite. And I give them a B- grade for depth. The bench is obviously graded on the curve if y'all haven't noticed, because if Jeremy Sprinkle and Donald Parham had to start, it would be an F. But as far as depth pieces, who will have time to grow and develop, they are a nice B-. So basically, look at it like this. The Redskins' quality of depth is slightly better than their quality of starters. Just so y'all know for the rest of the video, so no confusion when you see that the depth is better than the starters. I'm not saying the bench players are better than the starting players. It's just on a scale of how good the starters should be and how good the bench should be. Next, the running backs. This position group has so much talent and potential. Determining the starters is pretty difficult. Health plays a huge role in who will start for the running back group. Adrian Peterson is dependable and has a lot left in the tank, obviously, but doesn't hold a lot of potential and room to grow. Chris Thompson is still impressive, but health-wise is not dependable. But I do love his pass blocking, which is an area that Geis should improve a little, and Bryce must improve in a lot. But ideally, in my opinion, I have Darius Geis and Bryce Love starting. If healthy and proven in training camp and preseason, which I'm expecting to happen, they will be the starters. They will be the two running back starters who will share the majority of the carries. First of all, they are potentially the most explosive running backs on the roster. And then second of all, the Redskins may want to get them out there as soon as possible, ASAP, free Rocky, so that they can go ahead and develop sooner and lead this offensive attack that will primarily depend on the run game. And then the bench is the legendary Adrian Peterson and the scarily underrated Chris Thompson. So with that, I give our starting running back group a B+, leaning on potential, and when healthy, can be the best running back duo in the league. I'm serious. Darius Geis is only 1 year removed from being considered by many to be better than this generation's best running back prospect coming out of college in Saquon Barkley. And Bryce Love is only 1 year and some change removed from a 2,000-yard season. If they were already proven and were as great as I think they will be, but they already did it last season and proved to me that they can stay healthy, then this will be an easy A+. The only thing holding their grade back is previous production and health scares. And then the depth is insane. I give it an easy A. Chris Thompson is a top 5 third down back in this league when healthy, and Adrian Peterson can still run for over 1,000 yards. And these two are the depth on this team. That's crazy. I'm just curious to see how Adrian Peterson handles not getting a bulk of the carries. He will get a fair share. I definitely see a running back by committee system where 3 running backs carry the ball every game, and their carry numbers are fairly close to each other, but he won't be the feature back like he was last year. Got to see how he handles it. I'm assuming when he signed that contract, he already knew it was up. Now, the last part of the offense, and the hardest to predict when it comes to who will start and make the roster, the wide receivers. This is a struggle guess because anything can happen in training camp and preseason. I might look completely stupid in 2 months. If the season were to start today, then I'd guess that Trey Quinn, Paul Richardson, and Terry McLaurin would be the starters. But honestly though, between me hoping this happens and the fact that I can actually see a real possibility of this happening, I see the starting lineup being Terry McLaurin at the Z, Cam Sims at the X, and Trey Quinn at the slot, even though the snaps will be handed out pretty evenly amongst the starters and bench players. The main reason I see Paul Richardson making a push to be a starter is because he is way better than people think, with him playing hurt with multiple injuries all year last year. And also, he's eating up so much cap space, the Redskins are probably going to at least try to get their money's worth and send him out there, even if he isn't one of the 3 best receivers at the end of the preseason. They'll probably just throw him out there week 1 unless he gets hurt again, which is also one of the reasons I don't see him starting week 1 because he is injury prone. But as far as Scary Terry, I believe he will actually shine early. First of all, because of his chemistry with Haskins. And that's another good point. Luckily for all of the rookies and second-year players like Trey Quinn and Cam Sims, they all have an equal chance besides knowing the playbook because there's going to be a new starting quarterback regardless. Paul Richardson and Josh Doctson would have some sort of an advantage over the others if Alex Smith was the starting quarterback this year, having some form of continued chemistry from the previous season, even if it were minimal. But now, with Haskins or Keenum starting, all of the wide receivers start on a clean slate, except McLaurin with Haskins. And not only does he have that boost of chemistry over everybody, but he is also a very versatile wide receiver, with him being able to play every receiver spot with his great route running, like Maurice Harris. And Terry is fast. Don't forget that he ran a 4.35 40-yard dash. Believe in Terry. So the starters will be Scary Terry, Cam Sims, and Trey Quinn. And I will grade that as a very optimistic B. No proven players, but a lot of potential. I believe they'll be productive week 1 and grow into some true playmakers throughout the season. Maybe even some fantasy football options. I want them to grow with Haskins and finally bring some continuity to this offense over the course of some years. We keep having wide receiver and quarterback chemistry grow over the course of a year, and then just something happens to where we pretty much have to start over the next year. I'm hoping this group of 3 starters get to play with Haskins as soon as possible and become our Art Monks and all of that within the next coming years. And in the bench, I love Kelvin Harmon. I have high hopes for him. High floor prospect with not much of a ceiling, but box out, jump ball, and tough catch guy. If you need a receiver to make a catch on 3rd and 4, he's that guy. Underrated route running, and his blocking is as great as it gets at the wide receiver position. He has a little bit of Hines Ward to him. Shouts out to the University of Georgia. If Cam Sims gets hurt again, I expect Kelvin Harmon to be the one to step up in that position. And I have Josh Doctson and Paul Richardson making the roster. There's a lot of speed and potential in Paul Richardson, along with his big contract, so he will make the roster at the very least. And then Josh Doctson, after not picking up his 5th-year option, his time here is very limited. And with the Redskins already showing that they are willing to bench him mid-season, Doctson better hurry up and produce because he is on a very short leash. And if he gets benched at some point, he's done here in DC, period. But he will make the original 53-man roster to start the season unless he gets hurt or refuses to produce any the rest of this summer. And I give this bench a B- for those who may just be listening and watching. I love Harmon's dependability and some of his potential. Paul Richardson's potential is high, and I kind of like Josh Doctson's desperation mixed with experience. He knows this is pretty much his last chance on the Redskins and probably the last chance period on the NFL roster. We'll see how this goes though. And now the defense, our most promising side of the ball. And I'm going to start with the most promising part of the most promising side of the ball, the defensive line. This defensive line is definitely in competition of the best defensive line in the league. This unit is not only very good with a lot of potential to become even better, but they are also very young and on contracts for at least the next few years. This defensive line is dominant and is here to stay for years to come. And I'm so glad we are out of that Terrell McClain and Stacey McGee phase of life. That was pretty tragic. They had me missing Chris Baker so much, and they were overpaid. I thought they were overpaid before they even played a single snap for the Redskins. And then they went out there and proved me right. But back to the present and the future. The starters are easy. The Bama boys and Daron Payne, who will be entering his 2nd season and is expected to make a big leap from his already productive rookie season that flashed a lot of potential. And Jonathan Allen, who is expected to be one of our best players on defense this year, according to a lot of people outside of the Redskins organization and media. This isn't me or Redskins media talking. This is people from Bleacher Report and Pro Football Focus and all of that. And I'm hearing a lot of buzz surrounding Jonathan Allen from fans and media of other teams lately. And then Jonathan Allen is also like some sort of a team captain, especially it looks like this offseason. He's a leader. The media asks him questions after practice. A lot of signs point to him having a great year. And then there's criminally underrated Matt Ioannidis, who's going to have a great year also. I'm expecting our defensive line to be even better than last year. Now for the grades. The starters with the Bama boys and Mr. Underrated. That's a clean A. And I want to give them an A+, but none of them are Pro Bowlers yet. And none of them have had a double-digit sack season yet. So there's been a lot of shine and a lot of great moments, but just not the production to give them an A+ yet. You feel me? They haven't quite earned that grade yet. But I'm going to give them an A. And then the bench, Tim Settle, who could easily start on most other NFL teams, has the room to grow into a very deadly defensive lineman, especially in his 2nd year. He will surprise a lot of people this year, watch. And then Caleb Brantley is untapped potential waiting to be unleashed as soon as he can stay healthy. He has too much talent to not have a big impact in the rotation. So I give the bench a strong A also. It's almost like half a plus. But again, there's a lot of potential going into this grade with previous production holding the grade back from an A+, just like the starters. But along with the running back group, by this time next year, I expect to be handing out A+ across the board if they are as great as I expect them to be, and as long as health problems don't stunt any growth or production. But this defensive line and running back group, this time next year, should be A+. Now the edge rushers, one of the most exciting groups of this team. Ryan Kerrigan is one of the most underappreciated players in Redskins history. He does nothing but go out there and produce, and he's never missed a game. His whole career. Never missed a game. Mr. Dependable. We better enjoy him while we still have him. And then now, he's going to have his best partner in crime in his career. Potential on God mode. Montez Sweat, who is going to have a big impact day one and will only improve as every game passes. His run stopping is on point already. His elite, once-in-a-generation athleticism will bail him out of a lot of rookie mental mistakes, like his pad level being too high and him rushing without a plan occasionally. His pass rushing will become great over time, hopefully sooner rather than later. Preston Smith used to get a lot of pressures, but he was always one step away from getting the QB hit or the sack. Montez Sweat is a step faster at the very least, so a lot of those pressures will turn into sacks and maybe turnovers. This duo along with that deadly defensive line makes for a dominant game-changing front five. and often for us front four with how often we run the nickel package, and we'll just have Montez Sweat, Deron Payne, Jonathan Allen, and Ryan Kerrigan out there a lot of the time. Now the bench, Ryan, why did we spend a second round pick on him? Anderson may be able to get better, but as of right now, he's just a decent edge setter and lacking a real potent pass rush. And then there's also last pick of our draft, rookie Jordan Brailford, who is the exact opposite of Ryan Anderson. He's a situational pass rusher and not very good at setting the edge and stopping the run. Bringing him in on rotation on obvious passing downs like 3rd and long. So even though they have room to grow, more so Jordan Brailford than Ryan Anderson, we would be in danger if one of these players had to start. But it's a pretty good bench, some potential. Now my grades. With a beautiful combination of proven and dependable production on one side, and unlimited potential with day one starting impact on the other side, the lowest grade I can give is an A- to the starting outside linebacker group. This group has room to grow into an A+ at some point in the season if Montez Sweat is as fine as I hope he is. This whole grade depends on how great or bad Montez Sweat turns out to be. And the bench, I give it a straight C. Like I said, if Anderson and Brailford had to play starting size snaps, we would be in trouble. Simple as that. But there's a little bit of potential coming off the bench. Jordan Brailford definitely has some room to grow into like a Junior Gillette style of player. Now the group that had loads of potential until a major injury, the inside linebacker group. Prior to the Reuben Foster injury, the inside linebacker group was poised for greatness. They were going to complete a top 5 front 7 in the league. But now we have to move on without them this season. But they'll be back next year to get busy. But looking forward, the Redskins have a nice group of inside linebackers with some good depth. Determining who starts is interesting though. I have Mason Foster with his good run stopping and experience, pairing with the young Sean Dion Hamilton who is good in run defense and coverage. He's an every down linebacker. Mason Foster will have to be subbed out for Josh Harvey Clemens on obvious passing downs, and Sean Dion Hamilton will be able to play every down that he is not tired on. And can we talk about how well the Redskins have drafted these recent years since Kyle Smith has taken over? Getting a starting caliber center in the 6th round in Chase Roulier, who I talked about a little bit earlier, briefly, and a starting caliber inside linebacker in Sean Dion Hamilton in the 6th round also. But those are my starters. My bench is pretty easy to predict. I have newly signed John Bostic, who can cover slightly better than Mason Foster, but not very well. And he's not quite as dependable in run stopping, but he is a great depth piece. And he'll get more snaps than like a normal bench linebacker will get. It'll more so be a 3-way rotation between Sean Dion Hamilton, Mason Foster, and John Bostic. But I'm counting Sean Dion Hamilton and Mason Foster as the actual real starters when we go out there in our 3-4. Then there's Josh Harvey Clemens, who is the coverage linebacker. But this year, I keep hearing about how much weight he's gained, and now he actually looks like a linebacker. So maybe he can actually be used in 1st and 2nd downs with a straight face. And then I give this last slot to the very athletic rookie Cole Holcomb. Once he learns how to trust his good vision and be more proactive versus reactive, he'll be a very good depth piece and could grow into a starter. Now the grades, I have the starters of Mason Foster and Sean Dion Hamilton graded at an optimistic B- because Sean Dion Hamilton's instincts and coverage ability have a lot of potential to grow, and they're already good enough to make a big impact behind the dominant front 5, who will keep him clean a lot of the time. Now the bench is a nice B, with so many types of depth pieces. We have dependable but average John Bostic, great coverage and getting better in run stopping Josh Harvey Clemens, and the very athletic project in Cole Holcomb. The linebacker group isn't in as bad of a shape as a lot of people think, especially with how great the 5 guys ahead of them will be, which will make their jobs easier and make them look like at least an A- production-wise when you look at the stat sheet. Now another confusing group, the cornerbacks. This group is very interesting because it can either be very good, average, or very bad. We don't know. The front 7 being so good will help them out a lot though. Montez Sweat alone will make our cornerbacks better. The cornerback group has a lot of potential but can also play terribly if that potential isn't tapped in. For the starters, I have Josh Norman, obviously. And he is playing for his career on the line this year because if he doesn't produce, he's more than likely out of here after this year. And I highly doubt that he will get a big contract in free agency in a couple of years, especially if he doesn't play well like I'm hypothetically saying. So I'm hoping, and he's hoping, that he has his best year as a Redskin. And I'm assuming he will play smarter and harder this year. And then there's Quentin Dunbar, who is actually a solid outside corner when healthy. But is he actually healthy? He had a nerve damage scare, and I'm not sure if he's 100%. But he claims he is, so we'll have to see. And then in slot corner, you know who I got? My boy Jimmy Moreland starting. My boy. My favorite new player on the team. He is a playmaker. I'm expecting him to continue to show out this summer and earn himself a starting role in the slot. Honestly, like for real though. And then the bench is actually pretty good depth-wise. We have Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie, who may not be what he used to be, but he still may be the fastest defensive back on this team even at that age. And he's very versatile, able to step in at outside corner, slot corner, nickel corner, or free safety, wherever he's needed, if we sustain an injury, whatever. That's a beautiful depth piece right there. Very underrated signing by the Redskins. Then there's also my boy Fabian Moreau, who has a lot of talent and all of the potential in the world. He just needs to put it all together. When he gets it right, he'll be our best corner on the team and will allow us to escape from the huge Josh Norman contract. He is our future at corner. And Dunbar can be too if he stays healthy. And then there's also Greg Stroman, who was getting exposed early in the season, but actually developed into a pretty good corner by the end of last season, honestly. So our depth is pretty good. So as of today, if Josh Norman plays at the level he's played at since he's been in DC, and if Quentin Dunbar is 100%, then I give the starting corner squad a B. It balances out. I'm assuming Dunbar is 100%, which is optimistic, and I'm assuming Josh Norman won't make a big leap in improvement, which is pessimistic. So they cancel each other out. And then there's my boy Jimmy Moreland, who I'm assuming will at least be good, but I hope he's great. And then there's the bench, which is actually very deep, so I give the bench a B+, mostly because of Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie's versatility and Fabian Moreau's potential. And please y'all, don't forget about my boy Greg Stroman. A lot of people didn't pay much attention to him once the season looked hopeless, but he was making some huge strides in development. Y'all will see. Now the safeties. And this is easily the lowest grades I'm handing out. There's so much uncertainty at this position. Landon Collins is an A-graded strong safety by himself, but that free safety spot in strong safety depth is pretty dark. But if Dominique Rodgers-Cromartie counts towards the free safety depth, it's not as bad. But I have Cromartie as a cornerback, so I can't use him to boost this grade. But let's get straight to the grades. The starting safeties are a C+ until we are sure Monte Nicholson will return to his rookie season form and avoid injuries by improving his tackle form and mechanics. Hopefully his speed, range, and IQ return to the high level he had 2 years ago, and hopefully he stays out of trouble. And even though all of these are likely to happen, it's too many hopefullys for me to expect it to turn out to be the best case scenario with all of the stars aligning. So I'm going to assume he's somewhere in between just to be safe. He's going to be better than last year, but probably not as impactful as his rookie season, just for the sake of the grade, so I don't use a hopeful Redskins fan bias. And of course, Landon Collins and his underrated coverage skills will hold down that strong safety spot very well. Now the depth, tragic. I give it a C- until I see some changes. Troy Apke is very athletic, very fast, but didn't show any hope of understanding the free safety position, the mental side of it, and his tackling is very suspect. Horrible. Tragic. And then DeShazer Everett is a decent backup who has a lot of experience, so him filling in isn't too bad. But if he has to start, his limited potential and lack of athleticism would have us in trouble on the back end, especially if he has to fill in for the free safety spot. And with his lack of necessary range for the position, whew. But again, hopefully that front seven and pass rush is deadly enough to mask the weaknesses we have in the secondary. I truly believe that our front five is so good that they will raise the grades of each of these position groups behind them by at least a letter, just simply because of production. Our DBs will look so good when they only have to cover receivers for a couple of seconds, which will make it so they won't have to guess, and they can be very aggressive. And the linebackers will rack up all kinds of tackle stats because they won't have to worry about getting blocked when Jonathan Allen, Deron Payne, Ryan Kerrigan, Montez Sweat demand double teams. But the grades I'm showing y'all today are isolated from the production they will have because of the dominant defensive front five in front of them. If I was actually grading how well they're going to look this season, their grades would be higher. But isolating them away from how good the front five will be, the grades are a little bit Now for my overall grades as of today, I give the offense a B-. The offense will heavily rely on the running game, behind a strong, athletic, and most importantly, healthy offensive line. Dwayne Haskins may not start week 1, but he will more than likely start at some point this season, and Jay Gruden will not ask him to win games. He will manage games and rely on the run game and defense to win games until he blossoms into the Ben Roethlisberger that many professionals and analysts believe he will become. Like me, but it may just take some time. May not see the Haskins that can elevate our B- offense to an A single-handedly until 2021. Especially if the offense can't stay healthy and the wide receivers don't step up and make plays consistently. But I believe in you, Haskins. You can take this B- offense to an A single-handedly, especially if the offense stays healthy. And the defense, I give it an overall grade of A-. The front seven will be top 5 in the league. Probably would have been the best in the league, period, if we had Reuben Foster. But that's a secret weapon we'll have to keep in our pocket until next year. Just don't tell nobody else. Let them forget. And that top 5 front seven will make a lot of the weaknesses we have in the secondary that's actually not in as bad of a shape as many people think look pretty good. So I believe the defense will definitely win us some games, whether Keenum or Haskins is starting, especially if Darius Geis is as great as I expect him to be. I hope his hamstring injury that he suffered isn't too bad, and I especially hope it doesn't linger or add up to anything else. Now, for the Twitter poll for this week, stemming from what we talked about throughout this video, what is your favorite position battle this training camp? Quarterback, cornerback, wide receiver, or left guard? Luckily for us, we have multiple healthy position battles. Like healthy as in we have more than one person that could potentially be great in that position, and we just want to know who will be the best out of them for week 1. It's not like we have a bunch of sorry people and we got to see who's the least bad. We actually have a lot of good potential for these position battles. We just need to see which one is the better option. And out of those Twitter options, left guard is the only position really that I feel like is like picking the better of the two evils. I feel like Wes Martin can be really good, but there's no telling yet, especially week 1 wise. But the other position battles, even if Haskins doesn't start week 1, he is our franchise quarterback of the future, the Black Roethlisberger without the character issues. And then the wide receiver and cornerback groups have a lot of potential. There's a lot of youth, potential, athleticism, confidence, game-changing rare traits amongst the bunch. I'm excited to see who emerges out of these two position battles. And if I had to pick, even though Jimmy Moreland is the most interesting player to me for this training camp, solo dolo, and Dwayne Haskins matters the most as far as a position-wide battle, I'm most intrigued by the wide receivers. It's practically a wide open battle for the wide receivers. You see what I did there? And nobody knows for sure who will emerge as the biggest playmakers and most dependable targets as of today, July 13th. But yeah, make sure y'all go to the Twitter link in the description right now. You can pause the video if you need to. Go to that Twitter link and give your answer to this question. Much appreciated. Just trying to get a feel for how Redskins Nation feels about certain things, you know? Just let your voice be heard. But that's it for this offseason episode of Redskins Report. Thanks for the view. I'm going to keep bringing y'all updates. I'm going to be bringing y'all my film sessions on every player we drafted throughout training camp and preseason, one by one. And I'm also going to bring y'all some Redskins reports, some debate topics, some interesting views, rankings, and grades on the team like this, and of course some live streams. Make sure y'all get in them comments and let me know, how do y'all feel about the offense going into training camp? How do y'all feel about the defense? How do y'all feel about the position battles throughout this team? Also, y'all already know by now, make sure y'all Dolomite fake punch that like button, favorite, subscribe. I will subscribe back. For the people I haven't subscribed back to yet, I'm about to get on that. Most importantly, comment and share. And again, thank y'all for the support. I'll catch y'all later. I'm out.